Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first video podcast interview with Skeptical Eye for the Paranormal Guys. Do the green screen. Nice. Much better. And we are going to be joined today by YouTuber Modern Explorer. We're going to discuss his first interactions with what he calls the North American Hominid in Colorado Springs, and other experiences that he's had throughout his life. So, all right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Today, I'm greeted by Mateo from Modern Explorer on YouTube. He's somebody I've been following for a while. I really enjoy his takes on all things Bigfoot, and he's also a big into bushcraft, and that's how I originally found his channel. And so I'd just like to welcome him to the show. Mateo?
Hey, Patrick, thanks for the invite, and everyone else.
Yeah. All right. So I just wanted to kind of start it off that I found some of your videos doing bushcraft, and one of the things that stuck out to me was a few of your original videos. I think that now there's about 100 videos on your channel, so it's grown a bunch. But when I found it, I think there was only about 15 or 16. And most of them were you exploring the wilderness and finding interesting things that could point to a North American hominid. And you were putting out some theories, and a lot of your videos, actually one in particular, I should say, was a small video that was called "I Investigate a Strange Man-Made Wall Mound in Colorado Springs." And this one I found particularly intriguing because it showed that you were willing to go, you find something interesting, and instead of just jumping to conclusions and, claiming, maybe this is some sort of like ancient structure or whatever, you went back and you actually went to the Colorado Springs Library, I believe, or you went.
Yeah, the Carnegie Library holds all the historical records for Colorado Springs here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so you were able to.
I go there a lot.
Yeah. Is that a local haunt?
I mean, cross-referencing and getting to know the history is paramount in anything, whether it's like historical things that you find, or in this case, like historical encounters that may be in the area.
Yeah. So when you started the channel, did you start the channel before or after you had that first experience with the North American hominid?
So it happened after, but the original purpose of the channel was for bushcrafting. Mm-hmm. And the reason I like bushcrafting is so I can just stay up there for longer periods of time and explore. Because I really love like historical stuff. Like I love like ancient history. I love trying to find out like we have a lot of like these native legends of the Utes here.
Yeah.
And trying to find physical evidence to support that. And that's what kind of got me into just being able to live out there through bushcrafting. It wasn't, I'm not necessarily into primitive survival, even though I had those skill sets. I'm into just being able to stay there as long as I can, supply myself and explore. And that's kind of like my main motive for going out there. But of course, after the first like encounter where I really realized that the species existed, it was hard for me, one, to go out there and feel safe. I didn't travel at night anymore. And it was really distracting just because I was kind of like living in fear of this unknown element, this wild card out in the wilderness that I loved. Yeah. And so over time, I kept getting to the conclusion where I was like, well, I have to investigate this, one, for my own sanity, because it was just trying to ignore like this elephant in the room that was kind of terrifying at the time, right? Because imagine like running into some apex predator that's massive, that can clearly outclass you in anything, and you know nothing about it. You know nothing like how to avoid it, what to do when you run into it. Like you want to get really big and scary with a mountain lion or bear, right? To challenge it, scare you away. But you do that to like a primate or even like another person. That's like a challenge, right? Like we need to know. I need to know these things so I can feel safe in the environment. Like to know, like, well, if they do create manipulation on the environment, which most animals do, right? Like they do something to the, like, mountain lion will scratch a tree, same with the bear, to let you know, hey, I'm in the area. So that you can be like, okay, I'll respect that, I'm going to go around. But what about these species? Like, if we don't know what they do, then you don't want to run into one. Because my first one, like, I thought it was kids throwing pebbles at me, and I went right in there,
Uh-huh.
and they weren't happy. They got really defensive, bluff charge, everything moved, and
Yeah.
it was terrifying. You know,
Uh-huh.
I mean, obviously, it took me a long time to face those fears,
Yeah.
but the original intent of the channel was to go bushcrafting, looking for like the history and historical
Mhm.
stuff.
Of course. Yeah. Would you actually mind running us through that first encounter that you had with the North American hominid that kind of started it all?
Yeah. So the first encounter, and technically it wasn't the first. This is the first time I recognized, okay, this
Hmm.
thing, this
Yeah.
this thing is real. Because before that, I had one where I was like, they must just be bear, even though it didn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
And I just, we can go
Yeah.
over that later if you want.
Of course.
Well, so to get some reference, there's like a tourist attraction here in Colorado Springs, up in the mountains, that I worked at for a long time. Like when I moved from Ecuador,
Hmm.
in high school, I started working there, and I worked my way up. Then I went to the Marine Corps and came back, and I became a manager. And a lot of weird stuff happened there. A lot of like my friends had like weird sightings, because all we do is go out at night, either driving or hiking in the
Yeah.
areas nearby. Um, and I just dismissed these creatures they were seeing, because
Hmm.
back then, when you hear screams in the woods or you see weird things, it'd be like a demon. Like that
Yeah.
would that's what it would be associated with. It wouldn't be associated with something like Sasquatch in the what would it be, like the early 2000s.
Hmm.
And so when I came back from the Marine Corps, it was already 2010, and then I left Ecuador to start a business for a year. And then when I came back,
Uh,
I I went and I got a management position at this place called Seven Falls, and
okay.
but I would go to the same area after work, which there's like some picnic areas right along like this road to go up to it, and it'd be like, maybe 11 o'clock, 10, 11, and I'd meet up with my girlfriend at the time, and there's
Hmm.
brush everywhere,
Yeah.
scrub oak, trees. And the crazy thing is, we're not far from the city. The city's really nearby.
Yeah.
And so and this is one of the things that scared me, because I never expected to run into anything like this. Because in my mind, I used to entertain, like, if they did exist, they would be somewhere isolated, far away from humans,
Yeah.
because they'd be afraid of us, and they would be
Hmm.
trying to avoid us. Even though, in retrospect, I realized, well, the mountain lion come right down the city, the
Yeah.
deer come right to the edge of the city, the bear. I even saw mountain lions in the same spot. But
Hmm.
at that time, I had worked a lot, like on like my PTSD, and so I built a
Yeah.
lot of tools and like stuff to like just really find peace. I
Hmm.
wasn't on edge, always like looking behind me, like to
Yeah.
see if there
Well,
was an enemy.
especially,
And
yeah, like Bigfoot.
what's that?
Oh no, I was just like, yeah, especially, after seeing a Bigfoot or something, just,
Well,
mm.
yeah. So this is
Oh,
before
yeah.
like having any concrete, like, no, being like, oh, they
Yeah.
exist.
Uh-huh.
So, but this is important to understand. One of the baselines that
Oh yeah.
I think allow these interactions to occur, is I was able to be in a very friendly place where I wasn't worried, right? So I wasn't normally, like before that, when I was dealing with a lot of PTSD, like I was just always, in a really aggressive, like posturing behavior,
Hmm.
always looking around, like I was
Yeah.
just um like trying to protect myself. But I had let that go, and I was really enjoying life, having a really good time. I didn't have like firearms like around the vehicles or in
Yeah.
my house the way I used to. I just had I did nothing. I didn't have to worry. Like, I let it go. It was really great.
Hmm.
And this is one of the baselines, I think, that allowed some of these interactions, is because I was in like a friendly place. And because of that, it didn't bother me to go in an area that, like, we didn't have the high ground. We didn't have like necessarily protection. It was just like these nice picnic tables next to a creek. And it was really nice area. And I did that probably like for 6 months, like
Hmm.
almost every single night. So
Yeah.
the next thing you have is repetition. You're doing the same
Yeah.
exact thing over and over again. And so you're kind of predictable, which
Hmm.
makes anything, whether it's your enemy or something else that's scared of you, feel safer to get closer. And so this whole thing is going on. And on one of these nights in particular, and I have it in my notes somewhere, like the exact time and
Yeah.
night, um, I started hearing like something walking through the brush on the other side of the road, like, but there's some, like there's multiple ones of them. And my girlfriend at the time, Caitlin, she was the one that points it out. She's like, I keep hearing something over there.
Yeah.
And me, honestly, like being complacent, knowing that there's tons of deer. We have like so many deer here. We have like chronic wasting disease because we have so many,
Yeah.
like along the front range. Like it's really bad.
Mhm.
And so there's mule deer everywhere. And I just tell her, it's deer, you know, like we've seen hundreds of deer all the time, and they make noise like that as they pass through like the scrub oak. And
Yeah.
on the road, there's like a deer trail there. So naturally, I assume it's deer. So we're just hanging out. It's summertime, and so we're just like on the picnic table, just like chilling, and we just keep hearing it, and it's bothering her. And I'm just like, whatever, it's deer. But this continues for an hour and a half. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, that's very unusual for deer to chill in one spot for like an hour and a half like that, especially like deep into scrub oak, right? Like normally they want to avoid those. Those are just like areas where they're moving through, because that's where predators can get them. It's like we're in these choke points.
Yeah.
And so I decided, well, I'm going to go walk up to the road. She doesn't want me to go, but I'm just like, oh, you know, I want to go. All I have is my iPhone like flashlight.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't very prepared.
Mhm.
So I go up to the road, and I go up to the first like sound signature that I can hear, and my light barely illuminates like maybe at most 10 feet. Like there's so much scrub oak. It's not very bright, and it stops making noise. And then the other one, like a little further down in the scrub oak down the road, they start making noise. So I go over to the other one, and I go to it. It stops making noise, but the other two start making noise.
Yeah.
So it's like holding still. And I go to the third one, and as I'm walking to the third one, I hear something behind me, like hit the road, and I look around and look down, and this looks like a little pebble.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, well, maybe it's my girlfriend that she didn't let me leave. But I see her, and she's like a distance away to throw like a little pebble like this big, right? Like I'm just like, that's really far away.
Yeah.
And so I go to the third one, and it stops making noise. So I'm just at that point, I'm just like, whatever, you know, I'm just blowing it off. So I start walking back to the car, and all of a sudden I see this pebble like right in front of me, like just go right in front of like my eyes, and just hit the road. And now I'm like, what kind of deer are these? You know, like, this can't be deer. And plus, it was already suspicious, like the deer were hanging an hour and a half, and all I could think at the time was like, well, it must be teens, it must be people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, you know, like people don't have the patience, and let alone three, to hang out subtly making noise, try to pull a prank for an hour and a half. But by this point, I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything else, right? Like nothing else comes to mind. And but I go over to talk to her anyway, and I ask her, I'm like, well, did you throw these pebbles? And she's like, no, she didn't try to scare her. And she didn't tell me at the time, but I talked to her like last year about it. And she said the reason like she kept bringing it up is because this wasn't the first time she thought pebbles were being thrown at us and like feeling like we were being watched. So she was more attuned to it. That was just the first time like she said something, and I went to go investigate. So by this point, now I'm starting to really, my curiosity in a way, I'm like, what is going on? You know, like I'm not afraid of people. You know, I just been back from 2 like combat deployments. You know, like I people I understand, you know, but something wasn't adding up with their behaviors. But what else could it be at the time, right? Like it had to be people. And the thing is in this area, these canyons are considered haunted. People hear screams. People like have handprints on their cars. You know, they see shadows. You like they have stuff thrown at them. You know, like you hear about it all the time. And so what happens as like a teenager growing up, me and my friends, we used to go scare people because it's just that's what it's all about. And even at that time, I would scare people because they'd come there drunk and high and they're teens, and I would just like make weird noises and scare them out. So I just thought it was someone trying to scare me. Obviously the joke's on me, right? And maybe making those screams and howls, scaring other people, is what brought them closer to us in the first place. And so by this point, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to find out. and she doesn't want to go be alone. So she comes with me because I know like there's a social trail nearby that
Mhm.
then you can just hit like the deer trail like that skirts the road. And so we go up there and we go in like close to the area where we heard the noises, but I'm not willing to go off the deer trail. And of course, like our lights can barely penetrate
Yeah.
the dense like scrub oak. And so we start walking back out and we hear somewhat like a group of people come nearby one of the the picnic areas.
Mhm.
And so of course I start making like these loud, obnoxious, scary noises. And you hear them all running their vehicles and like
Yeah. Get
all the
out.
doors close and they run off, you know? And totally forget about this weird, unusual thing going on here, you know, because I'm still in my head, it's just like, it's just kids, like it's just
Mhm.
people, even though part of me is like, it doesn't make sense, but what else could it be? So
Yeah.
we get back to the road, which is really close, right? Like we just walk maybe like 25 feet forward, and then to the left, like we walk another 10 and we're on like kind of on the road. And so we get to the road and we get like close to the vehicles, and then all of a sudden all hell breaks loose from this area. And these scrub oak, so our scrub oak here, like they're not very big, like they're not like oak trees
Mhm.
that you see like further east.
Yeah.
So they normally like are just large, almost like bushes, but some of these scrub oak actually get as big as like trees, not as big as an oak tree, but big for here. Like we're like they're probably like this big around,
Okay. Yeah. So
and
solid. Mhm.
they're pretty solid. Yeah, and like these things just start like shaking violently,
Oh.
and now instead of little pebbles being thrown at us, like huge limbs and huge like rocks start going, not throwing around us. And then we hear this bluff charge of this thing, this like a freight train just coming through the brush straight at us. And
Mhm.
I'm just in that moment I was just like, oh man, oh my gosh,
Oh yeah.
like this is like right then I realized something like a Sasquatch must be, this must be something like that, because
Yeah.
nothing else makes sense. Like nothing has that power. And so I ran it with her to her vehicle, got her in there, and I told her to meet me at the gas station nearby. And I jumped in, and like we just like drove off like as fast as
Yeah.
we could. As like this thing was just like coming, and you know, like, and it should have came right on. It should have been right on top of us, but it sounded like it stopped like right at the road,
Yeah.
and it's just like made noise like it was coming, like, you know what I'm saying, like
Oh
you
yeah.
heat it was coming, it should have run right on us, but it didn't.
Mhm.
So that told me like it was probably like some type of bluff charge, because that thing
Yeah.
would have been on us like in a second by the
Oh yeah.
speed that it sounded like it was coming to us. And so we get to the gas station and we talk, and I just have her, I'm like, well, just tell me everything so I can, because I'm trying to process, I'm kind of in shock, you
Yeah.
know, because at this point I'm just like, what the heck, you know, like
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
like the only thing that I keep coming to at that point was something like Sasquatch, which really bothered me, you know, because I was like, well, we're right next to town, it's an area I feel safe, it's an area I've been doing night hikes since I was like in high school.
Yeah.
And I'm just like this is it's kind of breaking my paradigm.
Yeah.
And so she tells me and I tell her, and then we go like the next day, and actually I might have some pictures
Mhm.
um to to go look at to go see if there's evidence. And what we end up finding is we actually find like physical evidence, because I'm trying to at this point disprove that this
Yeah.
thing
You
happened, like, because I don't
essentially
want this to
debunk it,
be
right?
real, you know what I'm saying, like I don't want this to be like a real thing, because I've just finally felt safe just being like back in, you know, in the States and
Yeah.
being around. Like I don't want to like lose that.
Yeah. Now you got a whole nother thing to worry about.
Yeah. And so we go up to the area and we find these impressions.
Huh.
One's like 16 inches long and the other one's 18 inches long.
Yeah.
And they look like footprints in like the like the foliage and leaves like on the ground. And if I can find them, I can show you.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
And there's even like a trackway going right up to the road where we heard the bluff charge. And
Yeah.
there's all these broken sticks and limbs of like these maybe maybe like that big or so. And
Yeah.
some of
Really.
them
Yeah. Something
where
that.
we just like went like crazy. Um, hold on, let me see. But yeah, and so it's really like freaking me out, because I don't know what to do at this point, right? Because
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
just been I've been feeling safe up until this moment. And then the other things were that I jumped like in the leaves, the dried
Oh,
leaves,
trying
trying
to
to
like,
recreate this to
mhm.
see like maybe like, well, maybe someone like messed with us to make these impressions. And me jumping, I didn't have the weight to leave an impression. Like I'd leave an impression like very, it wasn't that noticeable, but then the
Yeah.
leaves would creep back up, like, and they're
Hmm.
dry leaves, like, and so, but they would still like kind of retain their form, and so you could barely see like my impression compared to
Yeah.
these.
Hmm.
And so then after that, a bunch of other weird stuff that like my friends had seen
Yeah.
over the years, other weird like deer animal kills that I had like come across. And then all of a sudden I was just like, well, maybe the hauntings have like some merit to them. And that was like the first like time I realized these hominids exist and they're way closer than it gives me comfort. And that like kind of put me on a course for many years where I was afraid to go at night into the forest.
Hmm.
And when I would go for long times into the forest, I would go armed
Hmm.
because I didn't
So
want to.
yeah. And then so when did you first start making your treks back out there? Like finally knowing that this was out there and that you were, you know,
So when so a couple years later, I decided like I wanted to test my survival skills
uh-huh.
because I kind of like I really what I did is I kind of just pushed it down and tried to suppress it, even though it was always in the back of my mind. And you could tell because of the way like I was armed and always looking around like for these things, because I
Hmm.
just knew they existed. And like in the military, the scariest thing is like an enemy you don't know, like a
Yeah.
wild card. You don't know the capabilities, you don't know anything about them,
Yeah.
and so that's like what really like freaked me out. But I went up anyway. I found a camping spot on top of Pikes Peak at 10,000 feet. And I lived up there for maybe 5 months during winter,
Yeah.
testing my survival skills. And oh, I found it.
Nice.
And
I think there should be a
basically,
screen share option if you want.
yeah, I'll do that in a moment. Basically, like I would like literally pee around my camp, and I would build out like a fort almost
Yeah.
to feel safe up there. I mean, most of my
Mhm.
time was spent just hunting and gathering firewood. I mean,
Yeah.
it's winter, and I'm
Yeah.
just
That's
like in
like,
a semi-primitive shelter. All
yeah.
right.
Lovely. There
Yeah,
we
you should be
go.
able to see it. Can you
Oh,
see
nice.
it?
Yeah. Yeah. So that right there, that's
So
space.
basically, like these were like some of the impressions being left in, and they were like two clear like sets of tracks,
Yeah.
or impressions, I guess you could say. Here's another one. Like that's I think this one was like the maybe it's 18 inches
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Let's see from
so,
like,
like up there between the two. And these were track ways through this brush, okay?
yeah.
And like they were leading to like one of them led to the road where the bluff charge was going on.
Yeah.
And so obviously like this is supporting evidence for
Hmm.
anecdotal like
Yeah.
experience,
Experience.
right? And so basically this like look how big this impression is compared to my foot.
Oh, yeah. Right there.
Yeah.
And
Like and then it's hard to see here, but there's actually like these same huge impressions leading all the way up to the road
yeah.
right over here.
Yeah. I can see that. And then, yeah, it looks like, I don't know. It kind of almost looks like something would, kind of press through the
Yeah.
brushes there.
Oh, and it broke. And so you see this tree right here. It's just been like bent over.
Hmm.
So like it broke through all of like these this whole area as it went over. They're trying to make noise.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's areas like where
Oh.
where we saw like the pathway going through.
Hmm.
And I remember I saw this stick, but from this side, looking at it, it looked like it was fine. I was like, what did they go like on their belly or something, or did they
Yeah.
go like all fours? And then I grabbed it, and they had snapped it back to go walk through here,
Uh-huh. Wow.
and it was really really interesting. So here's like one that's more obvious, like just like that something was pushing through here. So now I can't obviously like to you from your viewpoint, I
Hmm.
can't say like it's not clear enough to be like, yeah, this is clearly like a footprint. But for
Yeah.
me, for my like personal experience, having this supporting evidence
Yeah.
that's supported like the actual like encounter and experience was really helpful as far as realizing, okay, something did happen. I'm not crazy. It was all
Yeah.
hell broke loose, and now I
Right.
have to deal with the consequences of living kind of like in fear.
Yeah. That is interesting. I appreciate the photos too. That's like, yeah. And
So
that's
this
something
one's
that,
16 inches long.
yeah.
So
And so,
16, and then this was the other one. Like there are multiple ones of these, right?
mhm,
Of two different sizes. But there were
yeah,
three, but I only found like two different sizes. So maybe they were walking, one of them was walking the other's footprints.
that,
I don't know. I
yeah,
don't know.
no, that's something, there is a video somewhere. It's probably like, but it's of like it's like one of those webcams of Yellowstone, and it's on a geyser. And at one point you see, they're like, oh, there's Bigfoot in the background. And you can see these really, really tall humanoid figures walking, and they're walking in like each other's footsteps through the snow.
Oh, the behind the elk I heard about.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that one's a
the
really good one.
yeah, and I was like, and that one was like, I'm like, oh, that would make sense, that they're like, they don't want to conceal their numbers, kind of, and trying to be more sneaky.
Well, and it's more efficient because there's less work, especially stuff like that, like trudging through snow.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't even think about that, but yes, exactly. So
No.
that is,
So this print right here is probably the best one where you can kind of make out like potential toe prints, and
yeah,
you can
like,
kind of see like how far back it goes to the heel
mhm,
and how wide it is. But yeah, like that it was like a surreal experience, and definitely kind of altered like the direction I was going in
yeah,
with like kind of like my life, Just,
yeah. That's crazy. That's
so you
just,
say you're from Colorado? What
yeah.
part?
I'm actually from Lakewood, so I grew up in um the foothills, pretty much all along the Front Range there.
Nice. And you may have had like something you didn't even realize it, or came across something you didn't even like
Well, that
recognize,
was,
because that's what I realized later is a lot of the stuff
mhm,
that like I came across as a kid that I just dismissed,
yeah,
and it probably has some connection with these hominids like hunting, moving through the area.
mhm.
But
And
at the time,
that's,
I just
yeah.
didn't know what I was looking at.
Well, and that's what I was wondering too, is when you were hearing those sounds, if and if you hadn't noticed or wanted to go up to the road, listening to that, would you have thought it was deer? Did it sound bigger than deer? Did you think it was anything?
So at the beginning, I just thought it was deer because you hear deer going through that area all the time. Like, so it
Yeah,
wasn't like something unusual to begin with, because it's something that I hear all the time. And then when I go look, I see clearly deer, because a lot of
yeah,
times deer are pretty loud. Like I always used to laugh like how loud they are. I'm like, no, I don't know how they survive as a species, because like
yeah,
they're so clumsy in some instances, like where they're walking, just like
yeah,
making noise. And it wasn't until like I went out there to investigate, because dude, an hour and a half is a really, really long time
mhm,
for any animal just to be making noise, and let alone like a person. Because after
yeah,
the pebbles were thrown, then I was like, okay, obviously it's not like a known animal. It
mhm,
has to be a person, right? Like it can't be. There's no way another animal that I know of could do that besides a person.
yeah,
And then, but in retrospect, with what I know now, like things I've learned about primatology and just like human behavior
mhm,
and about this species, is that's a type of communication mechanism, like throwing like stuff, like making little noises, trying to get your attention. That's something that kids do, but that's
yeah,
also something like gorillas, chimpanzees do to one another,
mhm,
to elicit attention, try to get response because they're interested in
yeah,
another like gorilla, or in this case, people. um so then it's a very, if you think about it, like the communication channels are very gentle,
yeah,
right? Like it's a very gentle way. Like imagine like a 10-foot giant coming right up to you wanting to talk to you,
yeah,
and yeah, you've never met before. That'd be terrifying. Like let's say
yeah,
he's trying to be totally friendly,
mhm,
right? But if it just came up to you like just
yeah, out of the
overtly,
blue.
that would be terrifying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
And so their channels of escalation and communication, I think, like are really good, because they're not they're not trying to show themselves. And I don't think it's because they're necessarily scared. I think it's because they realize we're scared.
yeah,
So that's why making the noises, throwing little pebbles, is getting our attention, like just letting us know that they're around, is a good
yeah,
way to escalate like a eventual more contact.
uh-huh,
But I did the opposite, right? They were trying to be gentle, but I was really aggressive.
mhm,
It probably didn't seem that way at first, but I waltzed right in there. First
yeah,
time trying to like a light, I'm going right up there, and then I go in there. I don't, I, like, I didn't see them, but I didn't push through the brush.
yeah,
I'm thankful I didn't, because if I had stumbled like right on top, like one of
yeah,
these,
you probably would
I
have
don't
had a,
think I would have handled it very well. And then what I do is I make a ton of aggressive noise, because I already outflanked them, right? I went kind of behind where they were at.
mhm,
And then I started making a bunch of noise because those like kids came, and I
yeah,
was like trying to scare them out. So from their point of view, I've already like gone in there, outflanked them, their egress route, because the only way they have to go is like towards the road and must cover concealment.
Yep.
And now I'm making a bunch of like aggressive noise. And so they
Yeah.
waited till the time I got out to tell me to get like just to book it to get out. Like I wasn't welcome anymore. And they were really clear in that, right? Like it's just like all hell breaking loose. And we got out, you know, and so that's it took me a couple of years to figure that out, but it was nice recognizing, you know, like that they just weren't like these monsters. They were just I put them on the defensive because I was the monster in that moment.
Yeah. And that's interesting because I was going to ask a question here. Just if you found them, you know, through your experience and through like maybe, I guess, interviews or things that you've done, if you thought that they were just inherently more curious or inherently like actually a threat to humans.
I think it's going to be relative to their experiences and their location.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm pretty lucky, and obviously I don't have enough data to be able to say yes or no. I only have like my personal experience.
Yeah.
And I think what occurred in this particular area is because I was working there throughout high school, and then like, you know, like for throughout like the next like over a decade, you know, off and on.
Yeah.
And I was up there all the time at night walking through the brush off trail. I think, and this is just like my hypothesis, is that I was building rapport with them. Like they were watching me, they were following me like when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the time that they felt comfortable with me, you know, like a decade or more later,
yeah,
that's the first time I was finding out that they existed.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty like terrifying encounter for me. But I think in this area, because in the area it's at, there's, before you even get to national forest, there's probably like a few thousand acres that are just like pristine wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
One's private, the other one's owned by the city. That like there hasn't been any hunting allowed for over like 100 years.
Oh wow. Okay.
And stuff like that. So I think, and there's been a lot of like people up there.
Yeah.
Mainly, you know, like just teenagers. So I think that this group particularly has just built an understanding of the area.
Yeah.
Because in some areas, like further south along the Arkansas River,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of accounts of them throwing like fist-sized rocks.
Yeah, into the water,
into the water or by people. And I personally think, I don't think that's aggressive. I think that's like they're doing like they're trying to just get your attention. But imagine if you're so big that like fist-sized rock's really tiny for you.
Yeah,
and they probably don't have enough experience. And this is just, again, I'm just making assumptions.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I think that's just like friendly behavior versus over where I'm at. They've had more experience, this group, over generations, and they realize, okay, a small pebble is suffice, because if I grow something that's really small for me, like a fist-sized rock, that's going to freak them out, you know? So I think it's something they've built up, and they don't have very much fear of people in that area. But I wouldn't put that past, if you're in an area where like maybe there's a lot of hunters or where there's been bad experience, then they could be potentially super dangerous. I don't think they're aggressive, but they could be the most dangerous like apex predator out there.
Well, yeah, and I tend to agree with that, just based on, I see them more as, I guess I would think probably like chimpanzees, kind of the opportune killer, like with the case of, I guess, Dennis Martin. I don't know if you know that story at all.
Maybe
it was just he was a child who went missing in the Smokies, and there's some anecdotal evidence where he was playing and he disappeared and his father couldn't find him. And then a separate account about a couple miles away, another family was hiking, and they saw like a hairy man with something over his shoulder running through the woods.
Oh yeah, I've heard.
And I'm like, okay, you know, if you have somebody, you know, you have like a small child or something like that, you know, it's one of those things. But then again, like there's also stories like Albert Ostman, who was allegedly I guess kidnapped, or, you know, I don't know what you even call that, but
yeah, I mean, technically he's kidnapped, at least by all his counts, like in his sleeping bag, and just dragged to like a band of these hominids.
Yeah, which is interesting. I don't know. It's just having all these different experiences, or I guess type of tales. You're kind of like, it does seem like it'd be more of a curiosity than like a danger.
I think they're definitely very curious, and they're highly intelligent. Like they may even possess like their own language, which would explain a lot of things or at least a proto language,
The
right? How they're able to
vocalizations.
adapt because they're able to like give explicit information from one generation to the next. I don't know that for sure. There's some like evidence
Yeah.
that may or may not be from the same hominids we're speaking of, but if they do have this, then that would make them super adaptable. But that would also, make them like a type of people, maybe not like in a homogeneous, which I don't personally think they are, but I think they're in like a convergent evolutionary tree, and because and I think like, but yeah, like but I personally think, like as far as when it comes down to types of human rights, then most like big apes, like great apes, like possess that. I mean, like if Coco, a gorilla, could learn 500 sign languages and then create her own to get like the information from like her caretakers.
Yeah.
Then what are you missing? Like she can communicate what she wants, like, right?
Yeah,
like what's where do we draw that line at like those human rights and where they stand at kind of
and
thing.
that was actually another question I had, that if say the North American hominid or something to that effect becomes like known scientifically, would you put in or would you elect to have like legislation put in to like protect them? Because I think that that would open up a lot of people to be like, oh, they're out there, like let's trophy hunt or something crazy, or you'd
you'd have to. I think you'd have to, like, and it's hard. It's a hard one to do because you can't get legislation to you like prove that they, or at least get like someone with authority to admit that and validate that they exist. But that's going to take a while for legislation, and I think it's going to create a lot of fear, right? Because imagine like literal, like from your perspective, monsters living in the woods in your homes. And so people are going to want to protect themselves, and you're going to have people that want to like take them out. And honestly, these things are powerful, super intelligent, as smart as you and I are in their own way for their own environment and adaptability. And they have foresight, like there's evidence that shows like that they understand revenge. Like they'll wait until the right opportunity. They won't just react right then in the moment. Like they can mess you up. Like I would never try to hunt one of these because they're always in bands. They're always like in groups of like 3, and they're always in mutually supporting positions. And so they'll be able to ambush and outflank you if you go after one.
Yeah. So no, I completely agree with that. And just makes a lot of sense too, that because I think, as I said before, you were the first person who kind of made me, I don't know why, because beforehand I was just like, I was always interested and I always kind of believed, but it was like, oh, it's just this weird one-off monster that lives in the woods kind of thing. It wasn't ever like, I was like, oh, it could be like a descendant of Australopithecus or some type of, North American ape of some kind that we just don't know about. Yeah. So kind of off that topic, one of the videos that I really also enjoyed were your videos about speaking to their intelligence. That sorry, 1 second, forgive me.
No worries.
My notes out here. But the series of videos that you did about our Sasquatch spying on us, which showed a lot of like where you just found evidence that you thought might have been blinds, and I believe your friend Glenn Norberg also had some when you guys were on the Arkansas River, found some like really interesting like formations in the trees over there.
Yeah. So with the way I determine and come to like the assessment that maybe this is used as a blind isn't just like the manipulation of the vegetation, right? Which in some cases, like it's really hard to just accept that maybe in a 1 in a million chance, like maybe a bear did, But 2, it's the strategic and tactical locations where they're out. Either like, and it's mainly the ones I found so far are mainly like looking into areas where you can see people. And the manipulation, basically like the trees have been like either broken down to create like a hide. And I found this multiple times over and over again. And a lot of the times this happens before the spring and the leaves come in.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like cuts out the possibility of other animals like a bear going there to try to get food, right?
Oh,
there's no leaves, no fruit. And that was even like a scene along the Arkansas River. And I didn't even think to look down there because like it goes through like a high desert, right? So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't think like there was any reason to. But Glenn, he contacted me. He like started asking people questions, and he's like, he could be a journalist. Like he just goes and asks and gets his all these encounters down there.
yeah.
We started getting like encounters, a lot of them down by the Arkansas with fishermen and hunters. So we decided to
Hmm.
go look down there, and we found some similar like manipulation environment, except these Russian olives have something's broken them down, up, down, like
Yeah.
all over
It's
the place.
multiple
You know, like
breaks, right? Like it would,
multiple breaks, but like they're
yeah.
going like this, like weaving in and out, like in the breaks, and they're a lot, and they're all on like the south side, sorry, the north side of the Arkansas,
Mhm.
which is the side that the like you're not supposed to be on because the train tracks there.
Uh-huh.
And it's hard to get to because the south side is the one like where there's
The
roads and you can go
recreational and
hunting
everything.
and all that stuff. And so finding these, and there's like a ton of them, and so but we went to look because in the area where one of these two guys were turkey hunting got thrown like these big boulders, and one saw like a
Yeah.
big hairy arm.
Uh-huh.
We went to that spot, and that's where we found one of these breaks. And so like you find them like every mile or mile and a half down like the river.
Yeah.
And so we even went as far as bringing like the actual like wildlife biologist for all of Colorado who lives down in Pueblo
Hmm.
to come look at it with a decomposition expert, another biologist, Gretchen.
Yeah.
And we show them these, and obviously like at first like they're a little like reluctant,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
tell, like just to meet us because they're like, oh, are these guys going to be crazy? Because there are a lot of people that have like you know, they're kind
Yeah.
of delusional, you know, like they don't have like they don't even try to
Yeah. They're like,
cross-reference
this
things.
is, I know it's Bigfoot. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, even though or it's a lean-to and they say it's like Sasquatch structure. But
Hmm.
anyway, so they actually give us access. They come officially, like not they come like actually in their uniform in the truck, which I was surprised. You know, I thought they'd come like, you know,
Yeah.
off the record. And they give us access to the Walker Ranch to get over there, which I guess is where they're also rehabilitating the Blackfoot ferret population.
Okay.
And so we go there to the river and we show them, and they're like taken back. They're like, well, what do you think this is? And I'm like, I don't know, because this happens during spring. This is when like they were found during spring. And I was like, there's no reason for a bear to come and like break in. They're very intricate. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like any animal would do this during spring. So my
Yeah.
hypothesis is that the reason they were broken like this and broken so that they like from anyone looking from the other side of the river as a blind, a makeshift blind. You're like, you just have to break enough that it just like kind of breaks your silhouette up. And of course, if you're wearing if you have a bunch of hair, it's kind of like a ghillie suit.
Uh-huh.
And that's kind of the same thing I was seeing up here where I am with the interactions I was having with the group here. And so they were like, yeah, like it doesn't make any sense. Like they could not explain why this was happening.
Yeah.
And they were willing, which was really exciting. So they were willing to speculate
Yeah.
that if it was Sasquatch, like why it might be doing it, and what other things
Yeah.
might be
Yeah.
going on, which is really a good place to
Yeah.
get
It's a
from.
step.
Oh
Step
yeah,
in
from
that.
being
Yeah.
like, are these guys crazy, to
Yeah.
okay, yeah, you might have something here that we can't explain. And
Hmm.
that's good enough for me for now, until we can get more evidence to support the hypothesis.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking, so you guys, I noticed later on, you actually started collecting like interviews and encounters, and I was going to ask if you guys had any interviews or encounters that you've gone out on, or talked to people about, that you were like, I don't know, that you walked away skeptical from, where you're like, I don't know about that.
Well, there have been some, because so we, especially Glenn, because he'll go out and like he'll just ask people,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and I love it. I love it. Like that gets a lot of hits. But we do come across other cryptids, which I'm not against,
Uh-huh.
but it's hard enough just focusing on one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we've expanded. We've allowed like these interviews, and I think in some of them, like I think they definitely saw something, but I think some of the stuff's embellished. But I could be wrong. Like someone witnessed like something like a dog man along the Arkansas,
Hmm.
and they said they were going like 70 to 80 miles, and it could keep up with them.
Yeah.
And it's on a dirt road. A possibility, sure, but I feel like
Yeah. And
That's like
maybe.
really fast, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. It's again, it's like kind of like pushing and like my own like paradigm and
Paradigm,
my own
yeah.
like worldview
Hmm.
of what's like explainable, what's not.
Yeah.
But I've had to accept like maybe these other cryptids do exist because I've also sat like down with or heard a lot of people that have seen something like Dogman that have nothing to
Mm.
lose. They seem very sound, like they're
Yeah.
very intelligent, and it really makes me have to question. I was like, it sounds like they saw like something that looked like a Dogman, but
Yeah.
for me, I'm just like I'm not ready. I can barely handle like what
Yeah. The one that
one
I,
thing. So
yeah, exactly.
we'll put it out there, but I'm not gonna go investigate it.
Hmm.
Like, like a really like the way I've been doing, like
Yeah.
taking years out of my life and a lot of time to do so with the Sasquatch film because I really I think I need another couple of years of this before I'm satisfied because I'm already pretty satisfied because
Yeah.
my main effort for this was so I didn't feel afraid to go
Hmm.
into wilderness, that I understood enough about these species that
Yeah.
I could feel safe and that I can navigate my way around them and understand tells and indicators, and I have that now. And like now I
Yeah.
just go with like a little knife and I'll go
Hmm.
up there and I spend like all day
Yeah.
without fear anymore. So I got what I really wanted
Yeah.
out of this.
Well, hey, and that's great, honestly. Just, yeah. Um, all right. Well, in that case, I just got a couple more questions for you, but have
Yeah,
you ever
absolutely.
been in a situation where if you didn't have your bushcraft, you would have been toasted? You're like, you know,
um
or maybe like a precarious situation that you're like, man, I'm sure glad I remembered this.
I've definitely, yeah, I guess I've definitely been in situations where I I'm glad I had it because now instead of like when things go bad I'm worried, like I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to survive.
Hmm.
It's the mentality of, oh, it's going to be a really inconvenient night, which I want, because before it used to be really scary, if something were to happen or if I hurt myself, like I'd be like, oh man, I'm going to die, like, all right, I'm gonna like, I don't
Yeah.
think I'm going to survive. That was the thought process. But now, like when I get hurt or something happens in the wilderness,
Hmm.
where I'm just like, oh, I might have to spend the night here. I'm just like, where like I it's gonna be really inconvenient. So I bring all the stuff with me, which I've been able to make really light, to be able to survive the night, even if it's super uncomfortable. And the big part of that's just being able to make a fire and be
Yeah.
able to get like like water and have something to build some makeshift structure.
Okay.
I mean, it's gonna suck, right? You're gonna have to
Yeah.
accept that it's gonna suck.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm trying to think if there's a time, because there's definitely been times where like I started hurting and I had to slow down, but I just
Yeah.
kept like pushing through.
Hmm.
And that's one of the things I think that's been helpful with the Marine Corps. Sometimes it has drawbacks, but like just like that willpower, just to just keep
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
despite like the pain and misery.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I can't think of anything that I wasn't already prepared for.
Okay. Well, hey, that speaks to it,
But I
be
guess being
prepared.
prepared is like having the knowledge too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was something I think you said in one of your videos. It was funny. It was just like, oh man, back to the notes, but
Yeah,
it was
absolutely.
something about, what was it? Let me find that quote. Oh yeah, the very foundation of exploring depends on survival. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, you're not gonna explore too much if you're dead, I guess.
Well, if you can't live out there, yeah, and
Hmm.
that's the other thing that was kind of humbling was when I went to live up there for like those months.
Yeah.
I can really explore. Like most of my time was spent hunting. Granted, it was small game,
Hmm.
so it would have been easier if I was going after large and just collecting firewood. And because these foods just were mainly protein, I didn't
Uh-huh.
have very much energy.
Yeah.
So the hardest thing to find in the wild, and like a lot of people don't realize it because I didn't realize it. I thought protein would be hardest to find. It's
Hmm.
actually energy, calories, fat.
Yeah.
That's what's going to kill you first. Like you can die from just eating rabbits because they
Yeah.
don't have any fat on them enough
Hmm.
to like give you the
Yeah.
energy to survive.
Uh-huh.
So energy is the hardest part, especially during winter.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, that's crazy. Then just I guess you kind of answered one. I already had one. It was just like, have you or anyone close to you had any other supernatural experiences other than Bigfoot? Uh,
So I know when I was a child growing up in Ecuador, I saw like apparitions two
okay.
times, and
Nice.
my almost my whole family ended up seeing them.
Mhm.
We lived in like this 2-story home next to like these properties that had like these Adobe like homes, like just
Yeah.
falling apart. And I remember, so in Ecuador, like during that time, the 90s, late 90s, they didn't have enough power to run like the city
Yeah.
or and the country. So the power would die at night. So you always had like your little like a headlamp. And I had like this massive like yellow one, like that, like this big,
Oh
like
yeah. Like a
that
minor.
was like top of the line back then. But
Yeah.
now I giggle when I look
Yeah.
at it. But basically like my room, let's just say this is my room, my bed's
Yeah.
like in the corner here, looks out the door into like this open space, and then is my parents' door. So I
Yeah.
can, it's like a direct line of sight that I can see. And they normally they close their door like at night. And so one of these particular nights, I woke up. I don't know even know why I woke up. I didn't have to go to the restroom or anything like that.
Mhm.
I woke up, the power's out, but there's enough like light that you can see like the shadows of stuff, like the furniture outside. So I
Yeah.
look out and I see this man and woman. Like it's very clear, like the outline of them, and
Yeah.
they're kind of like embracing one another. And I
Mhm.
think it's my parents.
Yeah.
So I just do what any kid does. I want attention. I'm just like, mommy, daddy,
Yeah.
come over here. And they just no response. And so I started looking more clearly. I put on my glasses, and so they're not very far, right? Like they're like just
Yeah.
right outside my door, right? And so, and I realized that the woman has like really long hair, like almost down to her waist, and she's kind of
Mhm.
wearing this dress that kind of goes out, not like crazy like the Victorian, but like it kind of goes out a lot more, down to her heels. And I've never seen my mom, one, have a dress like that, and two, she has like short hair. She doesn't
Mhm.
have like, she has really short hair.
Yeah.
And so then now I'm like sitting up in bed and I'm watching them, and they're like just like kind of embracing each other and kind of like holding each other like that. And it's like really clear. And then I realize I think I'm seeing ghosts.
Yeah.
And so I watch them like interacting, moving. Like it's like the times like I talked to them before I realized like they were my parents. It's like I didn't exist. Like they couldn't even, like they weren't even aware of me.
Mhm.
And they just kept doing this, and I just kept watching intently, like just like on the
Yeah.
edge of my
Looking.
bed. And then I got my light, and I'm focusing, and then I'm like, well, let's see what happens. I turn it on, nothing there. I turn it off. I let my eyes adjust because I'm like, well, okay, maybe I'm just seeing shadows, even though it was pretty clear.
Yeah.
And they're not there anymore. And so I tell my mom the next day, and my dad's there, and he thinks like we're just crazy, like it's just our imaginations. And so he's like, whatever. But my
Mhm.
mom tells me, she didn't tell me before, but she said like a couple months before, one of my sisters like
Mhm.
woke up to go to the bathroom, and she went to her door, there was like this translucent man
Uh-huh.
standing in her doorway, and like it freaked her out hardcore, and she just went and hid under her covers.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, so like I'm not the first one to see this.
Yeah.
And then what happened was the second time occasion was, though it kind of scared me for a moment, but that was because it was during the day. Like I always thought like you're gonna see ghosts at night,
Mhm.
not in the day. And I
Yeah.
think I saw the same gentleman that she saw, but I woke up and it was like probably 6 o'clock. So the sun rises and sets. It's 6 a.m. and then down 6 p.m. Like it's on the equator, so it's like the same thing every day.
Yeah.
So I woke up, I turn around and I look in my doorway, and in my doorway is this man. He's like kind of a tall man, and he's like wearing like old like Spanish like attire. His
Mhm.
boots like are halfway in the floor. Like I could only see like the top part of his boots. The rest were
Yeah.
under the floor
Uh-huh.
boards basically. He's like wearing this hat, and he's just in the doorway. Like he's not doing anything like I don't even think he knew, like was aware I was there.
Was even
But
like.
he's standing
Yeah.
there, and I just like, I freak out. I put the covers on my head. I'm just like, it's just a ghost. It's just a ghost. Just to like look up, and it's gone.
Wow.
And honestly, I think I would have been afraid if I had an experience that my sister did for my first time seeing
Mhm.
apparitions, but because I was able to like kind of like get my bearings and like realize that they weren't a threat with the
Yeah.
first one, it really helped me like later in life. Just I don't have that fear, you
Mhm.
know. But then so now 1999 comes around, and we decide like the economy crashed, so we decide like to move to the States.
Yeah.
And we're all in the States, and my dad's taking care of business there. And he says like, and he didn't tell us this till just actually like maybe 5 years ago. Like
Oh, really?
he held on to it. He just told my mom. you know, because he was just, I don't know, it was pride because he just told us that we were all just crazy.
Uh-huh.
But he said like he was leaving the house, like it was the last day and everything was gone. And he was leaving the house and like he has like this feeling like that like he's being watched or something else, someone else is there. And he says he's leaving and he looks up the stairs as he's going and he sees this person walk up the stairs and then just disappear, like just vanish in front of his eyes. And so
Yeah.
he was like, okay, like he finally admitted it took him like decades to admit
Yeah.
it, but he admitted, you know, like, yeah, okay, you guys weren't crazy.
Wow. That is intense, man. And it's just like, so yeah, the world of paranormal is crazy. It's just so fascinating to me.
Yeah, and
I
I
just,
think I think at the end of the day, what it does is it's guiding us and helps us understand the nature of reality and mind.
mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good way to look at it. I guess I do have just one more question, and that just what would you say, if anything, has been your best like evidence or anything pointing towards, physical, audio, visual, anything?
So I would say the best physical evidence that I have right now that I would call like I wouldn't call it solid evidence, but I call it hard evidence
Mm-hmm.
are the deer kill.
Uh-huh.
The deer kill have been incredibly like persuasive, not only for other experts, but for me too. And that's these deer have just they've been broken, the leg bones, multiple ones, and the bone marrow taken out. I've been able to repeat this and find this evidence over and over again and be able to show it to decomposition experts that were just like they were like, what the heck is this? You know, I think that is one of the strongest pieces I have that I've been able to recreate. Because right, like this is only great if I can do it, repeat it over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And that I've been able to do, and it's always close to sites where the manipulation of these branches have been like broken to create like these blinds.
Mm-hmm.
And they're always offset by about a mile and a half from the last one from a year prior.
Yeah.
I haven't looked this year. I haven't even looked for last year because I hurt myself. So
yeah.
And then the next one that still needs some more scrutiny is these hairs, these long hairs that I found that like haven't been able to be identified yet. I found these huge nest sites in these areas where like it looked like they were like something long and large was laying down. And I even have like a video on it that I eventually want to make into a documentary that kind of like showcases really hard like the hair samples and also the bones.
Mm-hmm.
But these things I haven't been able to repeat the hair samples yet, but I haven't been able to find a nest site. But I also have been looking, I've been more focusing on my health and just like my Jeep and a bunch of other stuff that needs to come together first before I can really have time to go back up there and do kind of what I was doing before.
Yeah.
But those two like have been the most intriguing as far as like, like hard evidence go.
Yeah. Hey, that's great. And it's really great that you're like capturing this and actually documenting it. And I find you to be a very solid guy. I don't know, like
well, thanks, Patrick. I appreciate it.
But yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. Everybody go check out Modern Explorer. Hope you get, everything back up and running and ready to go. Yeah. And man, good luck. Anything you want to say before?
No, just thanks for the invite. And I hope your channel and like everything prospers for you. And
yeah, man.
Like humble beginnings, one step at a time,
Yeah, brother. I
appreciate
appreciate
that you're like trying to learn and like understand like this world. It's because it's so much bigger than we build it for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And I appreciate you coming on and just giving me the opportunity to ask you all these questions that I pretty much wanted to ask for like about 2 years now. So
Oh, good. I'm glad you got them. Feel free to ask me any questions anytime you'd like.
Yeah, brother. All right. Well, that was our talk with Modern Explorer, Mateo. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Now, how about that? That was our talk with Mateo of Modern Explorer. So go over there and show him support, because I sure am after this. Because honestly, we need people like him out there, collecting evidence, collecting eyewitness accounts, and just being generally curious about that sort of thing. So go over and give him a like and a subscribe. And just remember, I want you to support your local Modern Explorer. Do it.